Tetelestai here, April 19th, 2021. This is Proof Series, Forbidden Secrets, Part 3. And this is Chapter 11 of that book. Prophecy's Verdict. Amazing Prophecies. On April 23, 1989, Harold Kostar was murdered on his way to consult an astrologer about his future. No matter. His horoscope predicted a good day. Astrology is big business, but I'll show you something with a better track record. Question: what is the best evidence that the Bible is a reliable source of information? Answer: its fulfilled prophecies. An absolutely stunning performance. Prophecy can be tested. It is as rigidly demonstrable as geometry. Other evidence can be falsified, changed, or lost. Memory can fail. Conflicting statements may cloud the issue. Passion, self-interest, or dishonesty may impair proofs. But prophecy relates to history, and history is recorded fact. Did you know that the Bible stakes everything on its ability to foretell the future? It claims God gave the information and that only He can foretell world history. Who, as I, shall declare the things that are coming and that shall come to pass? Let them declare. Isaiah 44:7. Has any skeptic a case to present? Hear the challenge. Produce your cause, saith the Lord. Bring forth your strong reasons. Declare to us what shall happen. Declare you things to come. Isaiah 41:21-23. Let's be honest about this. Usually we can't even foretell the outcome of a horse race a minute before it ends. We can guess and hope, but we cannot know. But what if world history has been declared accurately and clearly for thousands of years in advance? What then? Notice this claim: I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times things that are not yet done. Isaiah 46:9-10. The challenge: proof of a supreme being. Does not this make the Bible unique? No other book on planet Earth has the audacity to place its veracity on its record of fulfilled prophecies. Not the Quran of Islam, not the Veda or the Bhagavad Gita of the Hindu, nor the Book of Mormon claim such. The Bible claims that the Eternal One selected men of integrity and revealed messages to them, and that, as they wrote, they were under His direction. Did you know the expressions such as God said, the Lord commanded, and the word of the Lord occur in the Bible more than 3,800 times? Are its predictions vague? Not on your life. They are specific. And in some cases they pinpoint precise dates far into the future, even to naming names. We're not talking about an odd prophecy or two, but 1,000 or more of them. One analyst has cataloged 8,362 predictive verses, which include 1,817 specific predictions on 737 separate matters. Found in the Encyclopedia of Biblical Prophecy by J. Barton Payne. The incredible accuracy of their fulfillment is enough to give you goose pimples. Let's look at a few examples. Tyre. For 2,000 years, the Phoenician city of Tyre grew in its importance until she was mistress of the sea, the commercial center of the world, the New York of Asia. Carthage, the rival of Rome, was only a colony of Tyre. Ships from all nations anchored in her harbor, and their passengers bartered in her streets. An unlikely prophecy. About 590 BC, while Tyre was at the height of her glory and power, when it seemed she must stand forever, along came the prophet Ezekiel and said, "They shall destroy the walls of Tyrus and break down her towers. I will also scrape her dust from her and make her like the top of a rock. It shall be a place for the spreading of nets in the midst of the sea. Thou shalt be built no more." Soon after the prophecy was made, Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon attacked Tyre. After a 13-year siege, he left it in ruins. Was it just Ezekiel? Nope. The prophet Isaiah 200 years before that said this: "A prophecy against Tyre. Wail, you ships of Tarshish, for Tyre is destroyed and left without house or harbor. From the land of Cyprus, word has come to them. Be silent, you people of the island, and you merchants of Sidon, whom seafarers have enriched. On the great waters came the grain of Shihor. The harvest of the Nile was the revenue of Tyre, and she became the marketplace of the nations. Be ashamed, Sidon, and you fortress of the sea, for the sea has spoken. I have neither been in labor nor given birth. I have neither reared sons nor brought up daughters. When word comes to Egypt, they will be in anguish at the report from Tyre. Cross over to Tarshish. Wail, you people of the island. Is this your city of revelry? The old, old city, whose feet have taken her to settle in far-off lands? Who planned this against Tyre? The bestower of crowns, whose merchants are princes, whose traders are renowned in the earth? The Lord Almighty planned it, to bring down her pride in all her splendor, and to humble all who are renowned on the earth." The book of Isaiah, chapter 23, 1 through 10. Yes, Nebuchadnezzar left the old city in ruins, but the prophecy declared that the timbers and rocks and even the very dust were to be cast into the sea, leaving a bare rock. It seemed improbable that this would ever happen, because if Nebuchadnezzar in his anger had taken full vengeance and had not thought of this, who was likely to care enough about the ruins of a deserted city to be so violently destructive? It would be needless and crazy. 2.5 centuries passed, and still the ruins of Tyre stood, a challenge to the accuracy of the prophecy. Then in 332 BC, Alexander the Great marched down the coast toward old Tyre. He saw it in ruins, but the people had moved onto an island. Half a mile of water surged between him and the island. Having no ships, Alexander planned a different strategy. He took the walls, the towers, the timbers, the ruined houses and palaces of ancient Tyre, and dumped them into the sea to form a solid causeway to the island. So great was the demand for material that the very dust was scraped from the site and laid into the sea. And so the site of Tyre became like the top of a rock, just as the prophecy foretold. I have been there. With my own eyes, I've seen the fulfillment of this prophecy. From out of the sea, beside Alexander's causeway, I have picked up pieces of beautiful colored glassware, porcelain, and tile that once adorned mainland Tyre. Original Tyre will never be rebuilt. This old mainland city of Tyre continues a daily defiance to every unbeliever. Thou shalt be built no more, for I, the Lord, have spoken it, says the prophecy in Ezekiel 26:14. Yet it's a habitable site. 10 million gallons of water daily gush from the springs. Fertile fields stretch clear to the distant mountains. Since there are millions of determined doubters who write numberless books to disprove the Bible, how did any prophet have the breathtaking daring to utter such a defiant prophecy? For 2,000 years, no skeptic has dared say the prediction is untrue. A place to spread nets in the midst of the sea. The prophecy says it shall be a place for the spreading of nets in the midst of the sea. Volney, the French skeptic, tells of visiting this spot and observing fishermen drying their nets on the rocks, just as the prophet said they would. Found in the book Travels by Volney, Volume 2, page 212. Every year, every day, every minute that mainland Tyre has continued in utter ruin, it has disproved the assertion of skeptics that Bible predictions are vague. You can check on this if you like. No person outside of the Bible ever made a solitary correct forecast covering hundreds of years concerning any city on earth. Now tell me, how is that only Bible writers are able to guess with perfect accuracy 2,000 years into the future? Objection. Well, it would be natural for a writer looking upon a ruined city to assume, hence, to predict that it would never again be inhabited. In reality, such an assumption, however natural, would have plunged the prophet immediately into serious difficulty. And here's why. Ezekiel turned his attention to Tyre's still more ancient sister city only 30 miles distant. While Tyre was still glorying in the splendor of its heyday, Sidon had for centuries been declining in power. Now, according to skeptical critics, Ezekiel was written as late as 330 BC, at least after Alexander's time. But accepting their dating for Ezekiel's writing adds strength to my contention. For while Sidon was still in a state of decay, it was taken by Artaxerxes Ochus, king of Persia, in 351 BC and destroyed. So if the prophet were judging by appearances in 330 BC, as our skeptic claims he did judge, he would have pronounced complete oblivion as the inevitable fate of Sidon, for nothing seemed more certain than its utter eradication. But Sidon still remains, even now possessing thousands of people. Would you notice the prophet Ezekiel's words? The word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face toward Sidon, and prophesy against it, and say, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, I am against thee, O Sidon, for I will send pestilence into her, and blood into her streets, and the wounded shall fall in the midst of her, with the sword upon her every side. Ezekiel 28:20-23. Observe that the predicted future of Sidon was not utter extinction, like the mainland Tyre, but only blood in her streets, wounded in her midst, and the sword on every side. And do you know that no other city on earth, with the possible exception of Jerusalem, has had so much suffering and been so often destroyed and rebuilt? Yet Sidon has survived continuously right to this day. Now suppose Ezekiel had said both Tyre and Sidon were to be destroyed and would be built no more. Then every one of the thousands of inhabitants of Sidon would be living proof of the falsity of this prophecy. Or suppose the prophet had said mainland Tyre was to survive but undergo great suffering, while Sidon would be utterly destroyed and never be rebuilt. What then? Wouldn't the skeptic have a ball, and with good reason? How did it happen that the prophet was exactly right in both cases? How is it the city has never been rebuilt is the city in which this fact was foretold, and that the city which has continued to exist with long-age suffering is the one which the prophet foresaw would continue to exist even to our day? When the skeptic has explained this satisfactorily, he still has a harder question to answer. Sidon, like many other ancient cities, might have sunk into insignificance, so that in its utter defenselessness it could have offered no resistance to even a feeble enemy, and would have tempted no invaders. How did Ezekiel know that, in spite of many terrible experiences, it would continue as a place of strength, which age after age would be fought for and passed on, wet with blood, from one conqueror to another? It has been bitterly fought over by the Syrians, Egyptians, Persians, Romans, Crusaders, Muslims, Mongols, Turks, English, French, New Zealanders, Australians, and the Israelis. In 1982, Sidon was the southern Lebanese headquarters for the PLO, a prime Israel target. Time magazine reported that it was the most completely destroyed town of the war. Not one unscathed building remained, and it remains in the firing line. The future of Sidon, according to Bible prophecy, is blood into her streets, and the wounded shall fall in the midst of her, with the sword upon her every side. Ezekiel 28:20-23. When the biblical writers Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel lived, Egypt was then so ancient that she boasted a longer unbroken line of kings than did any other nation. In their day, 600 BC, Egypt was eminent in science, in the arts, in luxury, and magnificence. Egypt was a leader of civilization. For many centuries, those artificial mountains, the famed pyramids, had stood as proud sentinels of a mighty superpower. Like its monuments, Egypt seemed to defy the tooth of time. She had the unity, repose, and calm majesty of a conscious power, the grandeur of a great age. There was not the faintest cloud on the horizon to threaten the peace and power of Egypt. It would have been natural to predict for her unending prosperity. Then came the Bible prophets, foretelling many amazing things concerning Egypt, which would reach more than 2,000 years beyond their death. I shall share with you a handful of the more outstanding predictions. It shall be the basest of the kingdoms, neither shall it exalt itself any more above the nations, for I will diminish them, that they shall no more rule over the nations. I will sell the land into the hand of strangers. I, the Lord, have spoken it, and there shall be no more a prince of the land of Egypt. Ezekiel 29:4, 15, 36:7, 32:15, 30:12, and 13. While prophecy is speaking of other kingdoms of the Middle East, predicted their destruction and obliteration, of Egypt is predicted that she will remain, but decline. The prophecy said it will become a base, lowly nation. Egypt was to continue a nation, but it was no longer to rule others. On the contrary, it was to be ruled by cruel strangers. This prophecy could not have been the result of mere human foresight. Even 600 years later, in the time of Jesus, Egypt was still very powerful. I will make the land waste by the hand of strangers. Ezekiel 30:12. Long after that prophecy was given, for the past 2,500 years, Egypt has been ruled by strangers. Persians, Greeks, Romans, Byzantine Greeks, Saracens, Turks, French, British, Arabs, strangers, just as the prophecy predicted. I will diminish them. Ezekiel 29:1. Biblical prophecy is turning out to be full of surprises. The fulfillments are stunning. Did you know that today Egypt, although the most heavily populated nation in the Middle East, is populated mainly by Arabs, not Egyptians? According to Encyclopedia Britannica, the Copts in Egypt, not the Arabs, are the racial representatives of the ancient Egyptians. The Copts have undoubtedly preserved the race of the Egyptians as it existed in the time of the Arab conquest in remarkable purity. The Copts are direct descendants from the ancient Egyptians. By E.A. Wallace Budge, The Nile, page 331. In their own country, the descendants of the ancient Egyptians are outnumbered an estimated 12-1 by Arab foreigners who have come in and taken over the country. The prophecy said God would diminish the Egyptians. How true. The prophecies become even more amazing. There shall no more be a prince of the land of Egypt. Ezekiel 30:13. When recorded, this prophecy would seem absurd. Mighty Egypt had a line of kings such as no other nation under heaven had possessed, and it seemed as though this would last forever. Even today, Egypt has had a longer line of kings than any other country. Yet since 400 BC, that's for 2,400 years, none of Egypt's kings have been Egyptians. The land of the Pharaohs has been ruled by foreign overlords: Persians, then Greeks, Romans, Saracens, Turks, French, British, Arabs. King Farouk, Egypt's last king who ruled just until after World War II, was not even an Egyptian, but an Albanian. And Naguib, the man who led the revolt to depose Farouk, was not Egyptian, but Sudanese. Likewise, President Nasser, Sadat, Mubarak, and so on, none of them have been Egyptian, but of Arab descent. How astonishingly accurate is this prophecy! In all world history, never has any nation been subject to foreign governments and foreign rule so long as Egypt has been. I will scatter you among the heathen. Thou shalt be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. Leviticus chapter 26, verse 33. Deuteronomy 28:25. Today, wherever mankind is found, whether it be barbaric or highly civilized, there you will find the Jew. He is in every land and every race. Thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and ye shall have no power to stand before your enemies. And they that are left of you shall pine away in your enemies' lands. Leviticus chapter 26, 33, 36, 37, and 39. Deuteronomy 32, 24. Chapter 28, verses 66 and 67. Wherever the Jews have set foot, they have felt the cruel stroke of persecution. On several occasions, atrocious massacres have almost secured their complete extermination. Their history has been one long, bloody commentary on the uncanny accuracy of this prophecy. The Nazi Holocaust still makes one's flesh creep. They shall be wanderers among the nations. The book of Hosea, chapter 9, verse 17. This prophecy hardly needs comment. We know the expression wandering Jew. There is even a vine with that name. And thou shalt be an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee, a reproach and a taunt. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 37, Jeremiah, chapter 24, verse 9. Wherever he has wandered, the Jew has been taunted and reproached. Through history, when one wished to express contempt for a person, he would call him a Jew. Who has not heard such a derogatory expression like, as mean as a Jew? And so on. All too frequently, I'm afraid, and often undeserved. But the inspired biblical prophets foresaw it, and their enemies fulfill the prophecy even as you read this. I will make a full end of all the nations whither I have driven thee, but I will not make a full end of thee. Leviticus 26:44, Jeremiah 46:28. The Jewish nation has survived more dispersions, persecutions, and martyrdoms than any other people on the face of the earth. The amazing preservation and longevity of the Hebrew race is a standing enigma, a curious paradox to the world. It is significant to notice that every nation that has persecuted the Jew has in time crumbled and vanished. Two nations around Judea that remain today, Persia and Greece, were those who befriended the Jews. Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the nations until the times of the nations be fulfilled. Luke 21:24. Present-day Jerusalem is the 17th edition of the original city. There is no spot on earth so blood-soaked as Palestine. Jerusalem city has suffered 40 major sieges, been partly destroyed 35 times, and totally destroyed 4 times. But while great cities such as Babylon, mainland Tyre, and other named cities were prophesied to disappear, Jerusalem would remain. Is it evidence you want? Then now you have it. Evidence evidence and evidence. Evidence of a prophecy which is so accurate it's uncanny. Thorough research will confirm there is nothing like this on Earth, not anywhere. The often touted prophecies of Nostradamus and others pale by comparison. So why don't we now investigate a prophecy which outlines the history of a whole succession of nations beginning 2,500 years ago and reaching to the present moment? And we'll hear about that more in the next series, part 4.